So, who here has studied music theory before? Awesome. Here and there, that's okay. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about basically functional music theory and how it applies to us during worship. If this gets too boring, somebody make a joke, please. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, just like Vern. So the whole heart behind this is to learn a new language. Okay, when I studied music in college, I got sat down in front of my first year theory professor. His name was Dr. Duda, and this guy was crazy. I mean, he was very stern, and his whole life was music. And he said, in here you'll learn a language that everyone in the world speaks, but not everyone speaks fluently. If you become a master at this, you will learn how to speak the heart of every person on the world. I was like, oh, wow. I guess that's what I'm doing here. Cool. You know, it's like you dropped a bomb on us. And he basically said, in no other studies in academia will you find a language that incorporates all forms of study. He said, music is math. Music is science. Music is humanities. Music is philosophy. It is everything in one because it combines all of the studies in every way. So that's why it's so daunting sometimes. Everybody gets it, but not everybody gets it, you know? And so a lot of times what's happened in Western music is that a lot of old dirty white guys, if you will, pardon my terminology, have created sort of this hierarchy of music. Like you have to be this kind of person to understand music. But at the basis of it all started out as folk music, really, because it generated from there and people put a language to it. But that language I want to become accessible to you as people on worship teams, because we're just going to grow and it's going to become better. And so that's the whole purpose behind it, is to learn the language of music, because it makes us more fluent. And the more fluent we are, the more confident, flexible, and free we will be with music. What's up, Marissa? It's good to see you. What? Oh, yeah, they're handouts.
I kept pointing at her.
There's 2 pages to build my life. Go ahead and pick that up. Go and pick that up. So this is all just a really short definition. There's a lot more to this, and if I'm missing something, Joseph Trumbo back here is going to tell me, because this guy has the degrees to prove it. I love you. You're amazing. Did anybody hear him playing Pocahontas? Listen, that was off the top of his head. That's amazing. Lord bless you and keep you. Awesome. Okay. So the Nashville Number System, it's as I've defined it here, it's a short form musical language used to communicate chord progressions through the use of numbers. So this is sort of like a micro language within music. And what it was used to do was, it was developed in Nashville studios to better communicate in a studio session what people were actually playing, if that makes sense. So rather than shouting, I'm playing A, C sharp, D, E, and then the drummer goes back, A, B, F sharp, E, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. And have you ever tried to like spell with your hands? Like A, C, it doesn't work, and not unless you know sign language, but we don't know sign language. No offense to anybody who is deaf. Anyway, sorry, gosh. I'm so glad you guys love me and accept me. So that's why it was developed. So it creates a more of effective and efficient form of communication for music, you know. And so why we use it here for worship is it's amazing to have like better rehearsals. Because if there's a question about a progression, let's say like for instance, you know, it's Akron on Sunday night, Michael, where the chart definitely doesn't say the right progression. You know what I mean? And then we're just like, oh, sorry, it was supposed to be 2, 3, 4. In like a matter of a second, it was all changed. I could have, exactly, yeah. I could have said B minor, C sharp, D, right? And that would have taken me a lot longer, and he may not have actually heard me say C sharp, and he would end up playing C, which is outside the key, and it doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna try to teach you that language that I just spoke, so we can all get on the same page. And the really big thing for me is the second point, to steward spontaneous moments. When we begin to understand this language, if we can start doing this, what happens is the spontaneous can happen because we're prepared for it. That makes sense? It's because we understand the language, because we're free in it and we're flexible in it, and we can become efficient in doing that. And so it becomes a lot of fun and different things like that. So, all right, we're going to start out with some basic music theory. Please don't nod off, and if you do, just shout really loud, okay? All right, just wake yourself up. Just do a little clap for your face. Wake up. So anyway, who understands that there's notes in music? Everybody? Got it. Awesome. Do you know how many notes there are? 12. Awesome. As the slide says. Amazing. You can read. You can read. Awesome. I feel like I'm giving a TED Talk, like the worst TED Talk, you know? It's amazing. Don't put me on Netflix. No. We are. We are talking about traditional Western music. Okay.
I only say that because,
It's true.
for example, this might not ever apply to us here, but if you
Yeah.
go to a Greek Orthodox church, the Greek chant that they uses semitones that we don't use. So they use quarter steps instead of half steps.
Mm-hmm.
My instrument cannot actually play those.
Yeah.
A guitarist cannot actually play those.
Yeah. So it's actually like notes within between these notes here. Yeah. So it's crazy. Like honestly, listen to some Greek Orthodox music; it'll blow your mind. Also, listen to some Asian music. Seriously, not like K-pop. Sorry. Yeah, classical Asian music. So that does exist. But what we are talking about Western music. Okay, how we've grown up in hearing music, by and large. And so I have two forms here for viewing, if you will. The top is sort of classical notation on a staff. If you don't know that, not a big deal. This lower half is all for you. We've made it. So here are all the 12 notes. C sharp over D flat, D sharp, E flat, E, F sharp, G flat, so on and so forth, okay? Awesome. So that's basically the rules. They're giving us parameters to play in, right? And so if you notice here, why these are that way is because they're the same note. It's just in our understanding, if that makes sense, on how we write music, why we have it that way. It'll make sense later on when we talk about key signature relationship. Does everybody get that? Okay, cool. Pretty plain and simple. Awesome. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and this is basic, is just like intervals. And it's really simple. An interval is just the relationship between two notes, okay? It's the space between, if you can imagine that. So, like this, basic interval, we'll call this a major second. This right here is C to D, and then so on and so forth, C, D. Now, let's play a minor second, and that's going to be C to D flat. Do you hear the difference? All right, so play those together. Major second, minor second. And so we're stacking up on top of one another, okay? So real quickly, if we go back to this, these are all sort of consecutive. Does that make sense? Okay? So the relationship from C to C sharp is our minor second. Can you play that? And then the major second, C to D, is our major second. And then we're going to keep building so on and so forth throughout that, okay? That's real simple. Anybody got any questions? Make sense so far? Okay, cool. So then as they keep growing, they keep getting bigger. And who's ever heard of a whole step and a half step? Awesome. Who actually understood what that meant? Awesome. Kind of great, yeah. So a major second is just a whole step. A minor second is just a half step. And it keeps going. And that's how we're building these relationships over and over and over again, between these two. And this is actually how we begin to build key signatures and chords, because it's all about these different relationships between these two notes, okay? So, all of this. I don't want to go in depth through those. And that is how we build a major scale. Pretty much all of the music that you've listened to in your life is this, based around that. So go ahead and play it. So from the time that you're in kindergarten, first grade, when you begin to start doing a music class, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that's all it is major scale, right? That's all we're doing, okay? And so that's made up of intervals. And it's made up of major seconds and minor seconds, whole steps and half steps, right? The same thing. And so that's kind of laid out there for you. Pretty simple. So the relationship between C and D is a major second, and then from D to E is a major second, E to F, so on and so forth, okay? So it's always gonna go whole, half, whole, half. That's always how it's going to be. That's the major scale. And so this is transferable to every note relationship on keyboard, guitar, anything. We're just happening to start on C, because that's the simplest language. Because if you've ever taken piano classes, it's just the white keys. Real simple, yeah. And so, but if we moved it up to D, then that's gonna change a little bit. Suddenly F is gonna become F sharp, C is gonna become C sharp. There's relationships. What up, Jake? It's good to see you, man. Awesome. Everybody say hi, Jake. Yay. Denim junkie, we love you. Okay, so here's a second way of looking at it. So I want to frame it for two styles of learning, if you will. So if you had a staff, there's the common way to do it, and then here's this sort of relationship as well. This is kind of how it's laid out. So this might make a little bit more sense to people. A minor second sort of becomes like a direct relationship. They're like little neighbors, if you will. So you can see E and F right there in the middle. And so you're doing kind of jumps between C and D and then D and E. Those are kind of like distant neighbors, if you will, the major second for kind of more simplified terms. So again, if we took this approach, let's say we wanted to start on E, for instance, right? I know that it's gonna be whole, half, whole, half if I want to build a major scale. So then I know that if I start on E, I'm gonna take a whole step, I'm gonna jump over F, I'm gonna go to F sharp, I need to do another whole step to G sharp, then I need to do a half step, A, then I need to do a whole step, B, whole step, back to D sharp, sorry, yeah, and then half step, E. Does that make sense? Please stop me if this is getting crazy and like heavy. Okay, awesome. Yes, go, please.
So one of the things that this is really helpful for is, and this is often happens with me when I'm playing with Ethan, is that Ethan will start playing, and sometimes if I don't know exactly what key he's in, or sometimes if I'm not exactly certain what progression he's doing,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's easy for us to identify individual notes. So if Ethan goes la, and I go, oh, okay, I've kind of found his note. But let's say he's singing, but I don't know what that note means except in the context of what he's singing. So if it's la 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 la, then I know that note is the first note, and so I could be like, oh, well that's the first note. It sounds like the first note, la da 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 da, of a major scale. Well, then I know he must be in the key of E. Whereas if he goes la 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 da da, and I hear that sounds like it's the third note, then I just can sort of reference back to this idea in my head that the third note is a whole step and a whole step down. So sometimes when I'm playing with Ethan and I don't really know exactly what key I'm playing in, or if I'm not exactly certain what we're doing, I can be playing in the key of whatever this is.
Yeah, so he's sort of poking around to find, because you can clearly hear when you play a note and it's like, oh, that's off. So like, I do that too. Like if I'm like, I think they're in G, but like,
Well, I'm just
yeah.
doing that by going, I'm going to play a whole step down, and a whole step down, and a fifth up, and now I'm just going to play a whole step up from that.
It's a little more complex, right? But that's okay, yeah.
But that way I don't have to think about the actual notes that I'm playing, which is really important for keyboard, because keyboards, you can get so tied in with the actual notes, you can get lost really easily. I think it's easier for fretted instruments because you have a much more better sense of, oh, I'm just playing, a whole step up, a whole step up, a half step.
I think this brings up a really good point. And this is the two forms of learning that I want to talk about in terms of what we're going to apply for the Nashville Number System. There's a linear approach, and then there's like more dynamic approach. And the linear approach is like keys. It's all laid out there, right? You have black and white. It's just here. This sounds lower, this sounds higher. But with Josh, you've got this stringed instrument, right? You've got multiple strings. Yeah, if I play the first string, I know it's going to be lower here. If I play it up higher, it's going to get higher here. But I also have these other strings too. Does that make sense? So he's having to end up thinking this way and this way. So a little more X, Y, if you will, versus keyboard and stuff like that. So I think that's an important thing to also keep in mind when we're talking about some of these things, how you learn. This is a good approach for everybody right now, especially for guitar players. Like, you can pretty much tell, because your frets are laid out right here. So I know this is always going to be a half step. Every single one's just going to be half step. It's not going to change on me, that kind of thing, that relationship. And I know that this is going to always be a whole step, right? So, not too bad. All right, anybody got any questions so far? Cool, awesome. So, because we've laid out the major scale, this is actually how we begin to determine key signatures. I know I'm throwing a lot at you right now. Stay with it, and I'm going to give more information after. But this is how we're generating our key signatures, right? Because we've gone from, okay, whole, half, whole, half, right? Because that's kind of the laid out pattern for us between that octave. And so when we do that, we apply it to starting note positions, right? So we started on C, we know that this is the notes that are going to lay out after that because we already determined our pattern. If we go on D, then it's going to lay out another pattern. And that's how we're building these key relationships, right? And so your key signature, okay, I've got one F sharp. All it's saying is I started on G, I took a whole step, I went to A. And from A, I went to B, and it's another whole step. And I took a half step and went to C. And then so on and so forth. And I magically found an F sharp, pretty much. Not magically, it was more intentional. But that's how we determine major scale. And the term that we're using for all this is called, if you look right here, it says diatonic, okay? And basically diatonic is only saying, hey, we're giving you rules, play within these. And the diatonic is basically major scale. Cool? Make sense? All right, amazing. So this is then how we build chords. Okay, we're taking intervals and then we're building chords off of them. Does that make sense? So we're taking all these notes and we're applying them together and we're building these intervals. Remember how we talked about major third, minor third, only slightly? Okay, that's how we begin to build basic chords. So a chord is a series of combined notes played together creating musical harmony. Simple enough. So if you could play a C chord for me, Joseph. Right, that's amazing. All right, so that's C, E, and G, right? So how we determine that, we define it by a triad, and triad's just 3 chords, 3-note chord. That's all it is. And how we build basic chords is by the relationship of major third and minor third. So stay with me real quick, okay? So if we start on C, a major third away from C is E, and a minor third from E to G, right? So if we invert that and we go minor third first and major third, then we get a minor chord, right? You hear that? It's awesome. It's really good. Love that. So, and then simple term is inversion. And inversion basically is saying, okay, for your example, C started here, right? E is here, right? And G is here, okay? Rather than play that C there, I want to play C up here. Make sense? So I'm going E, G, and C. It's still a chord, but it's played in a different pattern. So on and so forth. If I did G here, C, and then I did E up here, okay? Simple enough. Again, this is just all super building blocks of all this. So here's where it gets super easy and simple, okay? We've taken all these notes and I've changed them to numbers. Who already is like, I can understand numbers better? I am, exactly. And your face is amazing. It's awesome. Okay. So, for instance, for the key of C, in a major scale, C is now 1. So the next note up is D, that's 2, so on and so forth, right? And so we're only using numbers 1 through 7, right? And then obviously we go back to 1, which is a full octave. Shut up, Jake, I love you. All right, I'm gonna take a chocolate break. I'm hungry, guys. Gosh, this is so hard, like to teach in an hour. It's like, oh Lord, help me. So, is that making any sense to anybody? Okay, we got that. All right. If you're like, Ethan, just move on. I got it. Okay. So, if you can picture this, we're gonna build chords off of each one of those notes. Does that make sense? And so we're gonna frame it within the major scale, right? Because the major scale is basically telling us, hey, you have these notes to play with, do it. So I've got C, and I don't have any sharps, and I don't have any flats. So if I end up playing like a one chord, like a C chord, I'm gonna play C, E, and G. But if I add G sharp to it, go ahead and play that. That's not what we're doing. Yeah, that's when we're getting like some super complex theory, which is awesome and great. And some of the Disney stuff he was playing before, it gets really wild. But for us, we need functional theory. We need functional music. Like how can we, like as musicians, like maybe I picked up guitar because I found a tab one time because I just wanted to learn. You know what I mean? It's totally that thing. It's like people learn guitar because I wanted to learn how to play, what's that one? Yeah, exactly. I want to learn how to play Slayer. I was trying to think of the first song I learned on like a chord chart. I wish it was Purple Rain. No, it was that White Tea song, Plain White Tea song. Hey There, Delilah. Yep. I learned that because I want to learn Hey There, Delilah. Thank you, Jesus. So, but as you can see, like Joseph was playing a G sharp, which is like totally outside of the key. It's not working for the music that we're wanting to play. Okay, and so this is giving us parameters to really come alive and function in. And so basically we're building chords off of each one of these, okay? So based off of the triads that we talked about, right? Major and minor triads. So if I'm gonna build a chord off of C, I'm gonna go, if I'm gonna build a triad, I'm gonna go C, E, and G. And I know that's major, right? Because if I would approach C with a minor third, right? Then I'm going to E flat. That's not my key. Make sense? I can't do it. I'm just not gonna do it. Yeah, it's lame. By the way, everybody, I'm giving you like a year's worth of college theory in an hour. I know it's a lot. I'm sorry. We're gonna do part 2 of this. It's gonna be great. I can already tell. Shut up. There's not. Okay, it's gonna get easier. I'm telling you, it's gonna get easier. So, basically, going back to the Nashville Number System, they took numbers because chords were just really hard, right? I couldn't figure it out. It like doesn't make sense. So we're trying to find a way that's condensed that gives us like, these are the hard rules, and then we're going from it, and this is gonna become really easy and functional for us, okay? So, this is a Nashville number chart. You got one of these, right? Okay? So I'm gonna teach you how to use it. It's really simple. It's really amazing, okay? The numbers never change, okay? 1 is always 1, 2 is always 2, 3 is always 3, right? But the keys change, right? Because we talked about key signatures and we talked about different scales. Sorry, not different scales. We talked about the major scale and how it applies to different notes. Does that make sense? So if you know that you're in the key of F, then you're gonna know that the 4 chord becomes B flat. It's just a hard, fast rule. And so it's like when you're learning Spanish, right? You gotta learn conjugatives, right? Different things like that. Whatever, superlatives and stuff. You know what I'm talking about, Pablo. Conjugations, whatever. I didn't do well in Spanish. I'm not gonna lie. But you learned rules on how to speak the language. If this is hurting your brain, it's okay. It's supposed to, because you're learning a language. Totally. So that's what we're doing here. We're just setting up perimeters. We're setting up boundaries to, again, learn a language. So basically what we need to understand and determine really quickly in the Nashville number system, this is the hard, fast rule. 1 is always major. 2 is always minor. 3 is always minor. 4 is always major. 5 is always major. 6 is always minor. 7 is diminished. And you know what we're gonna say with that diminished chord? No, thank you. We don't have time for you because we're playing pop music. Go ahead. Just boo. You better play that Neapolitan 6 chord.
The Neapolitan 6?
Come on, brother.
Like, which?
No, we're good. I'm just kidding. Play the diminished chord, please. Yes, amazing. It's not time for Chopin. But go ahead and play. Just go ahead and play a diminished chord for me. Right? When's the last time you heard that in worship music? No, this is not gonna happen. It's not gonna work. Okay, it doesn't work for what we're doing. So basically, what this does is it simply lays it out, and you begin to learn this language. And it actually is really easy for those of whom who play guitar. It's actually super easy, and for bass, it is hecka easy. Hecka, you know what I'm saying? So like I literally taught Josh in like 30 minutes, five minutes one Sunday, because we were going back and forth. He's like, "What's his Nashville Number System?" I was like, "You know this," and you play like that. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got it," because it literally is just dealing with this relationship here. 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, right? So if for bass players, if you know that, then you can start building progressions off that. Okay. Is this making sense? This is meant to be a cheat sheet for you, because I would love to be able to build this. I'm not expecting everybody like next Sunday, hey, you better have this ready to go because we're going to follow the Lord. You know, that's not, we're going to follow the Lord whether we know the Nashville Number System or not. What we're going to do is just try to find a better way to communicate with one another, okay? So this is meant to be a guide for you. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, totally. There? Okay, always. Do you notice how it says 1/3 right there? Okay. Yeah, that's the exception. Do you notice also we're in the 7 category how it says 5/7? Predominantly, that's what we're going to use. So you know on the chord chart, like if we're in the key of G, right? D over F sharp, that's the 5/7. Okay, and so basically what it is. That's good. So, you hear that? So I could play like the diminished chord, right? It's if I try to end a song like this, right? I'm in the key of G. Song's done, right? No, because your ear is it's like in the song, man. What the heck, right? So how we do that? We cheat. It's actually the 7 is called the leading tone. It's that note. That's the definition of it, because it wants to lead you back to home, which is the 1. And so what we do is we take the note, which in the case of G is F sharp. That's our leading tone. And we find the other chord in our key that has that F sharp, which is the 5 chord. And we end up playing it in the bass.
Something that we will get to eventually are the functions of these chords.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about like how our 1 chord is sort of like home base.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that case, all of the other chords in the major scale have a function leading us somewhere.
Yes.
So for example, your 5 chord always leads back to a home base. And so we refer to them as tonic. These are words we'll come to later, but tonic, predominant, and dominant, just as 3 basic functions. There are other functions, but the basic functions. So then when we see these
Awesome. Makes sense? Cool. I love having you. I need you. I'm sorry guys if this is disjointed. It's because I made this today. So I'm gonna be super honest and real with you. I'm taking a risk. I totally made this keynote today. So if it's sketchy, you know why. Bless the Lord. Anyway, so the 1 chord. We're in the key of C. No sharps, no flats. these right here, these are all our notes that we can play with in the key of C, right? Remember? Okay, so here's a simplified definition. There are 12 notes in existence that we're gonna play through, right, in Western music, right? We're condensing them down with a key signature down to 7 notes. Realistically, it's 8 notes, but that's an octave away. You get what I'm saying, right? So, here are the 8 notes that we're using in the key of C, all right? You got the octave? It's the same note, just higher or lower. We're not gonna talk about microtonalities yet, but we'll get there in like 3 years. It'll be sick. If y'all are into this nerdy stuff, Jacob Collier, Holy Spirit, that boy can play. Anyway, so simple enough. Here's the chord. Again, going back over this, the 1 is always major. So my formula for making a major chord is a major third interval plus a minor third interval, right? Amazing. So I just made C, E, and G. Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to the 2 chord. I always know that the 2 is minor. So what's my formula? Minor third, major third. So I know that D is a minor third, major third. Are you noticing a pattern here? How they're just kind of like picking up and going here? Do you see that relationship? That's all it is, right? So if I go to the next place here, boom. The 3 here just moved over that way. Condensed down, E, G, and B. Cool, I should get a remote next time. That's how the real TED Talkers do it. Anyway, so now we get to the weird chord that Em was pointing out. This is the 1/3, okay? So what's the 1 chord in C? Do you guys remember? Boom. The 1 chord in C is C. Cool. What's the one chord in the key of D? Boom. What's the 1 chord in the key of A flat? You guys are learning the Nashville Number System. This is amazing. All right, so we're in the key of C. This is so good. All right, so 1/3, I know that in the key of C, that 1 is telling me C, and when it does that slash and it's playing that, so like bass players, this is really important for you. When you see that 3, you know, okay, I gotta play the 3 in the bass. That's the one exception. Does that make sense? Right, so if you were ever to see, this isn't common, but if you ever see 4/6, you know, okay, 4 is in my right hand, 6 is in the bass. Does that make sense? Oh, that's my favorite chord in all of the world, by the way. If you ever play a set and you play a 4/6, I will fall out immediately. I love that sound. It's amazing. So, going back to the 1/3, this is just how I've laid it out. You know, I've got E in the bass. I know it's there, and I've built a C chord over top of it. Make sense? In any inversion. So that G, C, E can become C, E, G, or it can become E, G, C, or however you want to array those chords, if you will, okay? Oh, notes, sorry. Thanks for the correction with your face. I love you guys so much. Anyway, I love myself. So this is the 4 chord. 4 chords always major, so on and so forth. 5 chord, back, skirt, always major. 6 chord, always minor. It's just going up consecutively here. That's all we're doing. And then we get to the weird 7 diminished chord. I'm not going to use it. It's just there for reference. Again, here's our 5/7. Similar to the 1/3, has a little bit of a different function, at least in how you hear it. Yeah. In the back I do. Sorry about that. Okay, so coming back to the Nashville Number System chart. Make sense? Any questions so far? Okay, I will provide all of these materials for reference later on. Cameron, you can come on up now if you like. So, it's one thing to like look at numbers, and it's another thing to hear them and hear the importance of this. So, I want to do a little bit of an example of what it means when we're doing all these things. It doesn't apply as much to Cameron because he's a drummer. But actually, what's really important about this is if you begin to learn, I want to show you guys something with this. And this is a helpful worship leading thing. Let's go in the key of A. So we're gonna play through some common progressions that we would find in worship. And you all have heard the term progressions, right? Progression is just relationship between different chords. But what can happen is, and this is how I've chosen to sort of take this as a worship leader. I was talking to Josh about this earlier. All of these series of numbers in my brain as a worship leader actually equal a feeling. So when I'm talking to the Holy Spirit while I'm leading a worship set, he'll be like, hey, there needs to be a lift in worship. So in my brain, immediately, because I speak the language, that means 4, 5, 6, 1, immediately. I just know it because I'm taking that language and I'm saying, this is now a tool for heaven. We can change this because I'm learning culturally what that progression means to people. It changes how they feel. So like when Joseph begins to play something that almost sounds Disney, something changes in your heart, right? Going back to that, it's a universal language. It's this thing where, man, that sounds magical. You know, because we always reference music like that. Well, it sounds like this. It makes me feel like this, right? So if you can begin to capture that as a musician and as a worship leader, then you can actually move in terms of helping people through emotional issues on a Sunday morning. Do you think about that? Like that, to me, that's so wild. And I thought for so long in like my life in leading worship that I was manipulating people, but it wasn't actually manipulation. It was actually like the tools of heaven being able to like remind people of better days, or to teach people how to sing out of depression, or to actually give them invigorating hope and power through musical progressions. Like that's a different tool, you know what I mean? So I want to learn this language so that I can learn how people hear and how people feel, and different things like that. So let's do that 4, 5, 6, 1 in A. And so this is like, for me, this is what I call lift. I don't have to click track, so Cameron, you'll have to click me off. We'll do like 144 like we're talking about. And you'll kind of sense that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the guys and kind of give you a live example of what's happening when we're going through our sets. You know, like Josh, actually, so I'm going to call out some stuff. I want you to call out some different things too as we kind of jam out and stuff. So what Josh is going to become is sort of like what we'll call the music director mic. So that'll mostly just go through in-ears. You're just hearing it out loud today. And so, you have it in the house? It's not? Bless the Lord. Yeah, that'd be great. Is this making sense? Because what I want this to become is like really powerful. You guys hear me? Yeah, awesome. So go ahead and click me off, Cameron, and we'll talk. We'll start into this progression, okay? Yeah, we'll just jam on it for a second, okay? We'll just do whole notes for the progression. Yeah. All right, so is everybody already hearing Spirit break out? Spirit break out. Right? You're already there. Gonna break our walls now. Then we switch to this. Our God reigns forever. Your kingdom reigns. Our God reigns.
I'm gonna go to this 3. So just create a shift.
I can't really hear you.
I'm gonna go to 3 to create a shift.
Do the 3?
Yeah. And
Okay.
so that would, for the bass, I would go to the 3.
Right.
They're gonna stay on the 1,
So do 4, 5, 6,
3.
1 over 3. Yeah.
And it's gonna create a shift. It's gonna feel like there's a little bit of tension to kind of push it into the next layer of.
Right. But you guys are sensing that thing with that lift. You know what I'm saying? Like how it sounds musically. So then we're going to throw that. So let's play through it one time, doing the regular 4, 5, 6, 1. And then we'll shift to the 4, 5, 6, 1 over 3. Hear the difference of it. What actually happens. It's kind of fun. And this is what we love. In spontaneous and prophetic moments, when you got a bass player like Josh, it gets like crazy. Because he'll start throwing like 2 in places you never thought. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? It's awesome. So let's do that again. It's 4, 5, 6, 1, and then 4, 5, 6, 1 over 3. 1, 2. Am I on the click track? Hey! Here we're gonna switch to 1 over 3. Yeah, you see that? So Josh just played the 2 and the bass there. Go back to that 1. We'll go to the 4. Go to the 2. Go to the 6. 5. Make it lift real big here. 1. 5. So I'm gonna go to the 6. I'm doing that 3rd progression. Go to the 4. Play it through again. 1. Go to the 6. Break it down. We'll go to the 4. Do the 2nd pressure. We'll go to the 6 here. 4. 5. This is the 1. Right. Does that make sense? So we're becoming really dynamic here, you know, and like we can start what I like to call sonic painting. It's just like getting crazy. Seriously, I mean, you think about it. You're like all over the place, and you're like, this is wild. We can do so many things, you know. And that's what happens when we begin to learn this Nashville Number System language.
And so when we don't have an MD, like at the conference, I don't know how many of you guys were here, but Nate had an MD mic here, and he was calling out progressions when he remembered to.
Pretty poorly. I was doing it pretty poorly.
That's true.
But so the idea is that most of our campuses, you'll see Ethan just throw a number out.
Oh yeah,
Okay?
totally.
He'll just throw a number down at his hip, and he's not doing like a cool Japanese thing. Like he's actually telling us what number to play.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier for us to just kind of swirl and kind of follow where he's going and to build things.
True. I think, you know, another thing for those of whom who are worship leaders here, pay attention to what moves your heart when you play progressions. Because some things become really natural. And especially if you're going to try to begin to songwrite, it's really important. Because you can just begin to engage yourself personally. I know for me, like, whenever I'm like sitting down at home to write, right? I'm thinking, what always kind of moves me is like the 3 to the 4, 1 over 3 to 4. For whatever reason, it just moves my heart. And so what I'll do is I'll generally start 3 to 4, 2, 1, something like that. In the morning, see your face. Meets me every day, and I rise to meet you. I see your face. Right, so I just know that just unlocks something in my heart where I'm just like, oh, I can write for days.
And you actually see this in other writers over and over again. Brian and Katie Torwalt, 1-4-3-4 or 1-4-6-4. Almost every one of their major songs are those progressions.
Oh, and like I love that new Corey Asbury song that we're learning, "Endless Hallelujah." It's in the morning when I rise to meet you. In the morning when I lift my eyes. You're just doing 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, and that's pretty much the whole song. And the other part of this that becomes really cool, and this is what we're going to end up doing, because that's why I gave you that chord chart for Build My Life, is we can begin to break down worship songs, you know, from the page. You know, a lot of you have probably heard me allude to this, like, hey, you've got to take it section by section. You got to relax a little bit. We got to see what's actually going on here. So, does that make sense, everybody? Is that exciting at all? Like, I think that's fun for me. I love it. So just go ahead and bust out Build My Life. I'm going to pull that up here. We'll put it on the, that's the number chart, sorry. Don't judge me, dog. What's also up with this projector? It's a little fuzzy. Jesus, we love you. Anyway. Thank you for laughing with me, guys. All right. So what I would like to do with your handy dandy chart, if you could just take the next 5 minutes, we're going to take what I'd love for you to do is take the first verse and the chorus and convert that to numbers, okay? And just to let you know, for everybody, this is sort of just a dead giveaway. The majority of charts that we use are sort of what they call CCLI standards. They're always really going to give you the key in the top right-hand corner. They're just going to tell you. They're going to give it to you. So that's a really great way for you to begin to learn the number system. It's like, okay, I don't have to figure out what key it is. I already kind of know what it is, yeah? So there might be some other ones like In the River that are totally dead wrong, but
Miracles.
Don't always
assume.
assume.
I'll try to tell you. Seriously, if you ever see one that says minor, you ever see minor up there, just talk to me and be like, yo, what is that? I'll be like, honestly, it's still in the major key. They're just being ridiculous.
A good rule of thumb is as you're playing or you're singing through the song, ask yourself what chord sounds like home base.
Totally.
That's
What sounds like home?
probably your key.
The one chord. The one chord is home. It's number one. We always want to be number one in our hearts. Home. Get out of here. Sorry.
What are you eating, bro?
Goldfish. I'm hungry. I'm eating all day. My bad, y'all. I got it. I got a mute button up here. So yeah, just go through this, convert that to numbers. And what's really good practice for us is, it's work. It totally is work. If you want to learn the language, just when we send out the set list, just convert them. I'd love to be able to start sending out number charts too for everybody. Seriously. And so what we can begin to do is actually make charts that have the chords on them as well as the numbers. So you'll have that dead-on association right away. You begin to sort of slowly but surely teach yourself that language. Okay?
And at some point,
Hey, Nate.
the music or the Nashville Number System opened up hearing music in a totally different way for me, because you start. I mean, we were just listening to a Weezer song before service. Didn't sound like Weezer. I don't know what it was.
Bro,
actually.
is that new Weezer joint? That sounds weird. It's real poppy.
But I could tell you without even knowing what key they're in, what numbers they're playing, because you can hear how the scale is moving. And it changes the way you hear music, and you start to realize the patterns, what he's talking about, the patterns in music. And it really kind of changes everything. And then you realize all music's the same, and you can never write ever again. No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. I love this song. This song actually contains all of the chords in it. It's perfect for this. And that one is meant to throw you. So I want you to use your best gathering of what I've given you and just give me an answer. You can't be wrong, okay? You just go for it. If 1/3 is C over E, what is C over G? Take a guess. Boom. You're so intelligent. Amazing. 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 Is everybody done? Everybody's good with that first verse and the chorus? Okay, cool. You didn't know you were going to be doing school stuff. Hope I didn't like just scare anybody off from ever coming to a Foundations. We're going to talk about other things other than just music theory. I just felt like this was a really good, maybe it wasn't really good, but just a good start off to beginning to stretch ourselves for the next season. Because guys, what's going to happen? All of this is preparation for more. Just all of it is. And this just makes you better. And honestly, it just gives you a ton of credibility. Seriously. Like Josh, you play out. You've played in big places. You've traveled. I've gone out and played in several places. You too, Joseph. And one of the most attractive things about us playing out is being able to communicate in numbers.
Everybody uses it.
Yeah, they're giving us charts with like letters on it, and we're like, we know numbers, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, we're good. It immediately brings peace to a worship leader. I know for myself, if I'm playing with guys and they're like, hey, I know numbers, I was like, cool, you can flow, awesome, great, we're gonna be fine, yeah. So, all right, everybody's good? We're just gonna double check this. All right, first verse. C is 1. Yay. Cool. All right, F is 4. Yep, F2. C over E, 1 over 3. F again is 4. Right, we've kind of distilled that, right? Simple enough. 1, 4. Basically, how I would say this to you, it would be 1, 4, 3, 4. 1, 4, 3, 4. That's it. Okay. What's the pattern in this verse? What's the chord progression pattern? Raise your hand and say it if you know it. Yeah. So there's a progression. There's a progression in this verse that if you know it, then you're going to be fine for this song. Just say it. Just take a risk. Come on in. You got it. What is it? Yeah, 1, 4, 3, 4. Right? Because it just repeats, right? You're just going 1, 4, 3, 4. What? I know. Just stick with your gut. Yeah. So that's all it is. Is the main progression is usually, listen guys, the main progression is usually 4 chords. That's why everybody makes the joke, well, it's only like 4 chords in worship music, right? Okay, yeah, we get that. 1, 4, 3, 4. Got it. So that's the verse. So if you know that progression, then you can actually then free yourself up to think about rhythm and other things, right? Yes. Great. So let's go to the chorus. It starts on the 4, then it goes to the what? 2. Then it goes to the what chord? Awesome. What's next? 6. What's the next one? Got it. What's the next one? Got it. All right, somebody raise their hand and tell me what is the progression here? What is the pattern here for the chorus? Got it. Amazing. You're all brilliant and awesome. Okay?
Functionality. So, if we're talking about if we're talking about the functions of chords, if we were to distill these over chords, so these combo chords of like 1 over 3 or 1 over 5, to one specific chord, here's where we might get confused. So, if I, as a keyboardist or musician, say to myself, okay, what am I actually supposed to play here in this C over G chord? Is it a C or is it a G? Is the function of this chord a C or a G? Well, the function is a C, even though G is in the bass, because this is not what this chorus sounds like. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Boy, that just sounds really wrong, and that's me playing a G, right? So there's a reason why we're playing the C here. And there's a reason why we're playing the G in the bass, and it has to do with the functionality of chords, which we'll get to.
So play 4, 2, and do 1 instead of 1 over 5, 6.
Holy, there is no one like you, there is none beside you.
See, it still works. Even though the G's not in the bass, he's playing C. So as a guitar player, as an acoustic player, you talking about the verse? 1, 4, 3, 4? No, you'll still play 1, 4, 3, 4. Yeah, it's still in there. You can still end up playing that. Huh? In the bass.
The open E is.
Yes and well, yes and no. So but ideally, as a musician, you're going to want to play the chord in a way that highlights the fundamental note of the third. And so it's more difficult probably to do this on a guitar just because the way guitar voicings work. But ideally, as a musician, I should not be just going 1, there's my 1, there's my 4, and because it's a 3, but I know it's a 1 over 3, I'm just going to go back to. I'm probably going to do something like this.
The way an acoustic sits in the mix, you're probably going to play the 1 and D just fine.
So don't stretch yourself. Yeah, like don't like sort of like overstretch yourself. Like oh, I'm gonna break my brain trying to play C over G, right? You don't just end up playing the C, like because is bringing up a really good point that C over G, the predominant like chord in that is the C. It's not the one in the bass. The one in the bass is kind of like leading you into a different area or giving you a different emotional feeling, depending on how it's voiced, right? So let's just play C together, Josh.
And we'll get there. We'll end up.
So that's a basic C. So play the G in the bass. I'm not changing. Yeah. So there's some occasions, yeah, specifically, yeah. Yeah. What I would tell you is if you can play the 1/3, that chord specifically as an acoustic guitar player, try it, go for it. Because that, like in the key of G, it's G over B. It sounds awesome. Love that. It's amazing. You might have to go hunt for that a little bit, you know what I mean? Because this is the standard G, but I'm playing the B in the bass, right? Make sense? Cool. Yeah. So if you ever run into that, this mostly when you're talking about these sort of, I don't want to call them abnormal chords, but those are mainly reference for piano players and
Slash chords.
Slash chords, especially for bass. Make sense? Cool. Is this fun at all? Is this good? Sorry, I'm just like looking at a bunch of faces like this hurts my face. Cool. Awesome. Sorry. Yeah, so this would be my charge to you if you can. Begin to translate the chords, the chord charts that you have like this into number charts and begin to learn that language. And basically what you'll come to find out really quickly is that you're rarely ever going to be playing in the key of D flat or A flat. And you're going to find out really quickly, like for us as worship teams, like here, you're going to quickly find out like, oh, Ethan mainly plays in B flat, B, and G. Okay, cool. I'm dead set on that. Like there's sometimes when you play an I'll play an A flat when I'm trying to do some Corey Asbury joint because he's ridiculous. Bless him. But when that time comes, you just kind of tackle it, and you're more equipped to tackle it then. So kind of take it by stride, if you will. You know, find those things. So great keys to start this out with and to try to begin to learn the language is G, A, C, and D. Those are the ones that I would tell you mostly to do that in, okay? And the other thing that's really awesome and really cool, especially for like acoustic guitar players that have to capo, numbers is perfect. Perfect. I mean, amazing. This is exactly what you want. So I hope this is helpful to you guys. If you would like a resource that's really good, I have this here. Music Theory for the Music Industry. It's by Jeffrey Kunde, who is the guitar player for Jesus Culture. It's just it literally says a practical guide, and it is. It totally is. So it's a really, really cheap book. It was like $5. Maybe $8, whatever. But anyway, it's just a good tool to have. He also has a really great one on was it like sight singing and stuff or whatever.
Oh, it's his new one about hearing music.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. Hearing. Sorry. Sight singing. I don't know. Anyway, so these are good resources. I'm always a good resource. Josh is a good resource. Joseph's a good resource too, as well. So is Nate. Michael, you're pretty fluent in the numbers. No, don't look at me. So does that make sense? Does anybody have any other questions? Right now, it literally is just applying it. That really is what it is. And like I said, when you're practicing this thing, make notes of it, of like what changes your heart, what happens to you, different things like that, because it's going to be really cool and be amazing, right? Cool. This has been Foundations, Season 1, Episode 1. Please give me teaching notes as well if I was super confusing. Sorry.